there's a version of you that only shows up around certain people. And for a lot of people, that place is family. You walk in and everything shifts. Your body tightens. You might be curling your toes or clenching your fists. Your breathing becomes more shallow. You're guarded. You're ready to be defensive or on the offensive. You're essentially not fully yourself anymore. And it's not necessarily that anything has to be said. It's because something in you, some part of you remembers, somatically, subconsciously, or consciously. If we haven't met yet, my name is Nick. I work with founders, leaders, and high performers. People who are doing well on the outside, but internally navigating pressure, identity, and how they actually show up in their lives. And this is one of the most common patterns that I see. So today we're going to dive into why this happens and how to essentially break this cycle, utilizing psychological and neurobiological frameworks, things that you can use to see, better understand, and move from that space of reacting to responding. And when you are in that red zone, that you're able to take actionable steps so you can function, you can move through it, and you can find that internal space of safety. Why do you change without anyone saying anything? So it's firstly not conscious, it is subconscious. It is a mechanism that you have developed to keep yourself safe. Essentially what's happening is your body is activating this role self or persona per se that developed a long time ago to actually fit into your familial dynamic. So you don't need anyone to initiate this. Your subconscious initiates this through neuroception. It scans the surrounding area, picking up certain environmental cues, sounds, smells. Everything gets filtered down and chunked up to, oh goodness, I'm in this space. This is what is required of me to be safe. And so you end up reverting to behaviors that were normal back then, but might not be normal now. 10 to 1, you're acting like a 7-year-old and you might be in your 30s, 40s, or even 50s. It happens so quickly. You'll notice that your stance changes, the way that you stand, the way that you're breathing, the way that you're feeling, the way that you introduce yourself. Your entire state shifts in accordance to this, and it's all subconscious. And a great way to frame this is your body isn't asking who you are now. It is asking, who do I need to be in this moment so that I can stay safe? You don't change around your family because they said something. You change around your family because your body is remembering who you had to be to belong. And as a child, you weren't choosing authenticity. You were choosing survival. And there's this trade-off that takes place. As humans, we have two fundamental non-negotiable biological needs, one for attachment and one for authenticity, to be able to express. The nervous system makes a ruthless calculation for survival. And you'll notice that shame ends up coming to the equation once again. And so you ended up sacrificing truth for connection. Your authentic emotional expressions and feelings of anger, sadness, joy, excitement, when expressed, made your caregivers rather uncomfortable. And it may have caused them to pull away or conflict to arise. And because of you being a child and this being a non-negotiable, you chose attachment and safety over authentic expression. And so you had to sacrifice that authentic part of yourself. To break it into steps, you've got authentic expression, caregiver withdrawal, and then your system overrides. It says, oh goodness, I'm in a bit of a pickle here. And your authenticity then gets suppressed. And you eventually get your need met through secure attachment with your caregivers, complying with what they deem to be appropriate in terms of how you act, how you feel, how you speak, how you show up. Why is it that this still lives in your body? Why does this pattern repeat every time you walk through those doors? Sometimes even just answering a phone call or getting a text. You will naturally revert to that persona, to to that role self that was accepted, the one that had to put its authenticity to the side in order to connect, to feel secure. And at the end of the day, it's essentially because we still have the same body as when you were a child. You still have the same nervous system. This is baked in there. And we have this incredible mechanism which causes us to generalize early lessons in childhood to keep us safe. So we take all these little bits of data, we chunk it up, and we associate a feeling and an action behind it, and so we adapt. And then this just becomes part of our default settings. It's something that is essentially trying to keep you safe and have your basic fundamental needs to be met. Your body developed certain protector parts, parts that would shut down certain emotions. So when you do enter these spaces or have these conversations or interactions, you naturally shut down certain parts of your expression of self. And it's because you are deploying a defensive mechanism because of a trigger that has come into play. And that's why it might be so difficult to have that hard conversation, to express that anger. But underneath all of that, you're sitting with this resentment and all these feelings that have been built up, and you just want to scream and express and share it, but you don't know how to. Because the minute you want to, it's like everything shuts down. It's like you're a completely different human being wanting to have this very important conversation. And it's really interesting because I've noticed this in session. When I'm sitting there across someone and they are talking through this, they've done a lot of self-help. They've read all these books. They can understand it consciously. But the minute they have to stand in front of that person within this context and they have to express themselves, it is if there's this wall and it's just this switch that goes off, and that there's the root cause. That's the part that we need to bridge the gap so that you can feel safe enough and you can support yourself. So when you are wanting to express, when you are wanting to be that authentic version of yourself, you can, in no matter what environment you're stepping into. So to sum that up, your adult mind might know that you're safe, but your body is still essentially running the same script. And something that's been shared more often than not is this idea of feeling really small. You step in and everything feels bigger and your eyes widen and you feel weaker, you feel this emotional regression take place. And it's because you're triggered by your family's inability to see this more evolved version of self. And something that I've learned is emotionally immature families relate to each other through roles rather than true individuality. And this regression that takes place is fueled by this hope that you will be seen and accepted by your family members if you play your role perfectly. And again, an immature family dynamic is focused on the role, not the individual. And that makes a massive difference in being seen and actually having that intimacy being met, the thing that you're craving. And you'll find that there's a cycle. You enter into the family environment. You have communication, connection, whatever the case is. There is this reactivation of this healing fantasy. If I play my role as X, Y, and Z, I will be accepted, seen, and loved. And you have probably done your best to be a perfectionist in this process. You've ticked all their boxes and you're waiting for that validation. That's all that you're asking for. Your inner child is craving that. Then what ends up happening is reality. There's emotional immaturity within your family dynamic. There's basically a limiter on the emotional capacity of your family. There's then this collision of reality. So you have this fantasy and you have what's actually happening. And right now your family has emotional limitations. So you're not going to be seen, that need is not going to be met, you're not going to be validated. So the next thing that happens is your confidence takes a massive knock. And so you fall from grace as this wise adult that's put all this work into themselves. and knows themselves. It's done all the work, and you end up progressing as a child. And so this pattern just repeats on and on and on. And there might still be this little part of you that just says, if I get this right, then maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe it'll feel different. Maybe I'll be seen. And to be honest, it's just one of those narratives that becomes more painful the longer it goes on. So just to address this with what I've seen and what I've experienced is you're going to have to put this to bed and recognize that you can do as much work on yourself as possible, but to assume or to expect other people to change as much as you have, it's just not on the table. Focus on you. How do you stay yourself without shutting down? Well, the first step is shifting those goalposts. Because right now, you might be seeking a deep, intimate relationship from your family, from your parents, from your partner, whatever the story is. And now we're needing to shift that to ideally a safe relatedness, which looks rather different. You're now lessening expectations of others and meeting people where they can be met and not expecting them to meet you. That gap causes so much suffering when you're expecting them to meet you at what you're looking for, if they have yet to see and meet those parts of themselves. So here's a basic operating manual that you can use as a reflective tool depending on if you're able to prevent, so this is before and during, or if you're a bit in the red zone and you are reacting. Things that you can actually do practically to just create a little bit of space and to bring yourself back into that space of safe relatedness versus this intimate expectation of this is a healthy family dynamic. So tool one is observation over absorption. The idea is to step back internally, and this is looking at this from perspective of this is happening versus this is about me. The key here is you're not having to enter every dynamic just because it's familiar. The next tool would be drop the need to be understood. Shift from needing to be in a relationship to just relatedness. It takes a lot of pressure off you and them incoincidentally. And essentially it becomes the thing where you're not the one that's having to carry the past, let alone fix the past in this moment. So you've just unburdened yourself and taken that burden basket and put it aside. And you don't need to have them see you fully in order for you to not abandon yourself. So that's the invitation there, being able to put those things down and just within yourself, stay within your power. The next tool would be somatic regulation, so work with your body in real time. I like to utilize the physiological sigh. I think it's just really simple. So it's a double inhale, so it's inhale once, pause, inhale again until you completely fill to the brim with air. Pause for a moment and then just exhale, purse your lips and exhale for a count of 5 or longer. So to demonstrate, it's and exhale. Just notice that the body sinks into where it is at this moment in time. You really are activating the parasympathetic nervous system. You're just saying that you're safe, everything's okay, it's okay to be where you are in this moment. And the fourth tool is just internal regulation, which is acknowledging the part of you or the parts of you that are wanting to be seen. And these are the parts that are typically shrinking, getting defensive, getting frustrated or angry. Essentially, your nervous system is just trying to help all of you collectively and keep you all safe. So you as the conscious pilot of all these younger parts of you, you get to reparent yourself in this process. Notice the physical shrinking. You can internally just say hi to that part without judgment. just thanking that part for keeping you safe when you were a kid, bringing forth a reminder that you are an adult now, that you're safe and you can step back. And essentially what you're wanting to do is update your system to I was a regressed child to I am now a safe adult. This isn't about blaming your family. It's not about cutting people off. It's about recognizing where you stop being yourself in order to stay and feel connected, and slowly learning that you do not have to do that anymore, because real connection doesn't require you to disappear first. And if this resonates, there's a deeper layer to this. I've put together a power leak scorecard, which helps you see where you're leaking energy, where you're not clear, where you're lacking internal capacity. And the link is in the description. And if you've been doing this work, or if this is new to you, just want to firstly recognize you as an individual. It takes a lot to ask these questions or to continuously pursue more and a deeper understanding. But sometimes just breaking this down into simple, tangible steps that are accessible in a day-to-day moment is where the real ripple of change begins to take place. Remember, the work that you do now doesn't just affect you, it affects the people after you. The more regulated, the more present, the more self-aware, the better this world will be. So, as always, trust and know that you have the ability to make the shift. Thank you for watching.